Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the newest episode of the Theater Enthusiast and Other Things podcast. I'm very excited about our next guest. I've known him since he was a freshman in college. But isn't it sad that's how... You were a freshman, right?
Yeah, we're old now.
God, you're old. I'm older than you are. F you. All right, please, what is this? Please welcome Dominick LaRuffa. Did I say it right?
You did.
Yeah. Oh, they're going crazy for you. Yes. All right, and that's off. So, Dom, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Who else would I invite? Many other people, but it's fine. You responded. No, I'm excited to have you on because, as I mentioned to you, you do a little bit of everything. So, for those of you who don't know, Dom is an actor. He's also a Broadway producer, Tony-nominated.
Yeah, you have to say it like that. Tony-nominated.
Tony-nominated Broadway producer. The last thing you produced was Betrayal, right?
Betrayal.
Let's have a conversation about that night and how gutted I was.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
No, it's just over. I didn't even care that you were there. It's just the fact I could have met Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, and he is as charming and well-spoken and good-looking and generous as you want him to be.
Oh, God. It killed me so much. And I even said to Dom on Facebook, I'm like, we might go back. Let us know.
Yeah,
no response. It's fine.
He's awesome.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, it's funny because my Carrie Bond and I, who has been on the podcast, guys, first guest, she and I were supposed to go on a different day, but then it ended up that she had to work or travel for work, so we had to switch our tickets, and ended up being Harold Pinter's birthday that day.
Yes, that's why we were all there tonight because the cast and crew and a few of the producers got together on the fourth floor of Sardi's to have a little toast to Pinter's birthday. It was actually one of the more unique and nice experiences I've had co-producing on Broadway, where everyone gets to actually be involved and be there together for a nice reason.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that. We've only just started the podcast this episode. So, Dom and I went to Pace together. Like I mentioned, he was a freshman when I was a senior.
I was a transfer sophomore.
Oh, sophomore.
But I was basically with the freshmen all the time because I was a transfer sophomore.
Well, I know that Pasquale, who I'm trying to get onto this podcast too if he ever responds to my Facebook messages.
Pasquale, do the podcast. That's my grandpa's name.
Yeah, Pasquale. You're getting called out on this podcast. And I will even tell you that. He was in my show that I directed senior year. Very excited.
Which show was it?
How I Learned to Drive.
Oh, that's right.
Which is coming back to Broadway.
I forget that you did that because when I saw it with Norbert Leo Butts and what's face?
Elizabeth Winter.
I had went into it with more knowledge than I usually had, more in-depth knowledge of what this play could be because of how much your show in college profoundly struck me.
Yeah, I know. My show was fantastic.
It really was. And considering it was college productions, what are they?
Guys,
now thinking about it, it was really that good.
Thanks, guys. I'm a really good director. Thank you.
Am I old enough to do it for real now?
No. Well, I don't think you auditioned for me.
No. I mean, what age is that?
Well, it's also kind of like a memory play too, so I think he has to be in his 40s.
Okay. Well, something to look forward to.
I mean, you're also younger than I am, so...
I don't know. I'm 30 now. I'm falling apart.
Oh my God, you're 30.
Yeah.
Read between lines. I'm just joking. Okay, so you went to Pace. So where did you start off? You said you were a transfer.
Yeah, so I grew up here in the city. I grew up in Brooklyn, and it was my full intention to get as far away from here as possible. In retrospect, I have no idea why, but it was mostly important to me to not be an actor. Mm-hmm. So junior high school, whatever it was, I did theater and I did the plays, I did the musicals, but the same way I played sports, the same way I was in the Scouts, I did those things because, I mean, yes, they gave me fulfillment and joy, but people clap for you and you made friends, mm-hmm. You met girls, you met guys you wanted to hang out with, but it was more of a environmentally social thing for me.
It was more of like a hobby.
Yes, and then around senior year, it really started to click for me that this was much more than that this was something, because I kind of stopped, really focusing on playing ball. I kind of, even to a certain degree...
Hold on. I'm not a sports person. When you say playing ball, do you mean baseball, basketball,
it was, sports in general,
football?
But for me, that was baseball.
Okay. I do enjoy baseball because I actually understand it.
Why? What makes you understand it more than anything else?
Because it's easier.
Well, I'm not
a sports person.
It is the intellectual sport. It is you really have to think while you're playing. So anyway, I kind of found myself being less and less distracted by things that weren't theater. Mm-hmm. And it basically terrified me because it was I don't want to be poor. I'm already going into school knowing I'm going to be 100% on student loans.
Which I do want to talk to you about because you posted something on Facebook last month about you getting recognized at a bar.
Yeah, a bar that I worked at.
Yeah, that I was like, holy
It's happened twice since.
No, I honestly, I do want to talk to you about that at some point later on, because I think it's so important for people to know what you wrote.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, 100%. So, sorry, continue.
So I didn't want to be poor, and for according to my grandparents, I had great intellectual capacity. So why not do something more with that could actually allow me to provide for myself and have a family one day, and all the traditional nuclear family ideas that older people have for a younger generation. So I went to Boston. I only applied to schools in the anti-New York.
Which Boston school?
I went to UMass Boston.
It's funny because I applied for Suffolk University, and I got in.
Yeah, I think I applied to Suffolk too.
Wouldn't it be funny if you got in? I think somebody else, maybe Carrie or someone on the podcast mentioned that they also applied for Suffolk.
Yeah, so I went, I remember... I don't remember all the schools, but basically I got into most of the schools I applied to, and they were all concentrated in Boston. So it was both UMass's, Emerson, probably Suffolk, BU, BC, all places that had granted big sports programs and stuff like that, but really strong theater programs. And I was like, okay, maybe I could just take a minor. I could dabble in that, and something that will still be fulfilling. Yeah. But they had strong programs across the board. That was my goal, is to, be a lawyer. So I went in, so my freshman year, I was essentially on a pre-law track. I was majoring in poli-sci and, taking a theater class or two on the side. And I had to stop myself from doing that the first semester, because I was like, oh man, you're only paying attention to your 1 or 2 theater classes and the rest of them are making you miserable, and what are you doing? So I really, really stopped, and I just focused on all the things that had to do with not being an actor. And a year into it, so, let's call it end of April, beginning of May, whenever, the first year of college ends, I don't know a time that I could think of in my childhood, and I had some crazy things happen in my childhood that made me this sad.
That's another podcast.
That's a whole other podcast.
That's another podcast, guys.
So
when you're an Oscar-winning actor,
we could talk about that.
Well, hold on, we'll talk. Seriously, Oscar-winning actor. What is it? It's February 5th, 4:22 p.m. I'm claiming him now. Okay,
thank you. I'll take it.
Thank you.
So I looked at my phone to make sure you were confirmed on the time.
Yeah, no, it's on my computer. 4:20, and it's on my microwave.
So I was just deeply sad. I mean, not leaving as a freshman in college, you're supposed to do anything but be home alone on a Thursday or Friday or Saturday night. And I was just so sad. And I really couldn't figure out what that was, what the reasoning was behind it, because I wasn't particularly a sad person. And I kind of realized it was because I went maybe 6 full months, which at the time might as well have been 6 years, without being on stage, without reading for something, without being in rehearsal, without, since I'm 12 years old, my life was consumed with always getting to do getting to do a play of some sort, a play or musical theater in general. And I kind of had this come to Jesus moment where I was like, you know what, I'm going home, first of all, because everywhere that New York is not New York, I hate. And let me audition for every program that would possibly see me. And this was already May. This was already the beginning of May. So basically all the programs were filled. So I was looking at waiting list spots, right? And my friend, who will probably listen to this because he is becoming a rather big deal in theater now, Brandon Contreras, who also went to Pace, but we went to high school with, he was the most gifted, musical theater kid in our high school. And
I had no idea you went to school together.
Yeah, Brandon and I are friends since we're 16.
I love him. I texted him the other day. I was like, "Hey, I'm free."
So I don't know if
he's busy with life.
Yeah, he's super busy and more famous than I am now.
I just would like to say that he is the loveliest human being.
He's genuinely that nice.
I'm what's the word? I'm bitter and cynical in my old age. But you're just happy that good things happen to people like him, and you,
Absolutely.
Of course, because you guys are just so nice. And I remember, I was going to bring this up later, but might as well talk about it now. So, Dom and I did Dog Sees God, Confessions of a Teenage Blackhead.
Yep.
Who did you play?
What was this guy? Matt.
Yes.
Yeah, Matt.
Wow.
Ooh.
I just have a good memory for stuff.
I'm old. But don't worry, I got there. It took 3 seconds, but I got there.
I used to live in the past. Now I don't. And I played Stevie's sister, aka Sally Brown. And so I remember, I think I had to knee you in the grind once.
Yeah.
Did I accidentally hit you?
It's funny when you think about that show. So I met one of my best friends, one of my groomsmen, doing that show, Eitan.
How's
and
Eitan?
He's good. And our Facebook friendship anniversary came up the other day, And the first picture of the first time Eitan and I had, were together in a picture was just me like being menacing toward him, and like my jersey, and it was so funny, and like, and just like how depraved that show was. And it was me and Eitan, all these girls who still are friends to this day, and we're all married and different now, and it's great. But anyway, the Brandon thing.
Yes.
So Brandon, it might have been a MySpace post. Like this is where we're going back.
Yeah.
Brandon posted about getting into Pace University. So like, mind you, I'm a city kid. I grew up here, and I did not know about Pace.
I forgot I applied to Pace when I got it.
So at the time, I had already auditioned and like called back for at Marymount, and Fordham, and where else had I already been at that point? Maybe NYU also. I was going anywhere that would see me, right? Brooklyn College, all places with good programs. Like thinking anywhere, even if I do just one more year somewhere else and then transfer. That was what I was thinking. And I said to myself, if Brandon, if I was like a little at the time, because he was hierarchy of high school juniors and seniors, whatever. I was like, if Brandon is considering going to Pace and he's this enthused about it, he's the most talented musical theater kid I know. This must be a great program. So I applied like an hour later. I got an audition. Mind you, I'm still in Boston when this happens.
Yeah.
I get like one of those waitlisted auditions, maybe a day later, like really, really no notice. I get an email from Grant, from Professor Kretschik.
Yes.
And I took the Chinatown bus for $15, the Funghua, from Boston to New York. Had my audition the very next day. I remember being so nervous to meet this Professor Kretschik, and then became one of the more influential teachers and friends in my young life. And I had literally less than 48 hours to prepare. I think it was like contrasting monologues, whatever it is that you were doing at college at that time. And I remember walking in thinking, I can't believe I've been here my whole life, meaning the city. And I was terrified because I got so lost on the way down there.
Well, it's a financial district.
Yeah, like downtown is so confused, and I really had a lot of those of us who grew up here really hadn't spent any time down there since like pre 9/11, and that puts me at 12, and so going there as an 18-year-old, like I felt like such a New York fraud. So I was maybe 15 minutes late, and Grant was very Grant about me being 15 minutes late. That was my first introduction with him, and I did both. I did both my pieces. He gave me some feedback. I did them again. He had really kind but constructive things to say to me, and he said something along the lines of, "There might be only one spot left, and I'm seeing like 25 of you today." Because the way I was able to get in there was because it was auditions just for transfers between sophomores, juniors, and seniors, but just transfer students. So they still had to allow some of those into the program. So we're going, let's just call it a Monday, when I apply, because I see Brandon's MySpace post.
Yeah.
I find out I get the audition on Tuesday, and while in Boston, I take the bus down and do it on Wednesday. On Friday, I found out I got in.
Wow. That was quick.
Yeah, I basically had to change my whole life because I was already in a new apartment in Boston. I was getting out of my first lease. I was 18. Like, what did I know about any of those things? I had already missed the ability to dorm at school at Pace. I also knew that I wasn't really interested in that because I was kind of, not going as an upperclassman, but didn't really want to, be a dorming freshman, and like had to, apartment hunt in New York, and had less than no money. And it was just one of the more remarkable times that I made it work, if I think about it.
Well, if there was any way to use your experience in your acting career than that, I don't know what else.
Yeah, it was great. And honestly, I've never looked back. From my first day at Pace on, it's the best decision I made as a young person, or as a younger person, because it's given, I could kind of look at my life pre-Pace and post-Pace, and like that whole germination of that process, like where the starting point from where like my world is expanded into its current form, like my very best friends, a lot of my working relationships, things that are directly or indirectly involved with my life now kind of all have their roots in having come here to go to Pace.
Can you tell me like the best and the worst experiences you had at Pace?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just want to preface by saying, and I say this every podcast when we talk about this, everybody's experience is different. Everybody knows my senior year experience.
Yeah, well, I also think there's difference in eras, right, now. So, like, from, the other side of my life where I see, on the producerial side of my life, where I see kids that have, Pace on their resume now, or kids coming out of Pace, it's like, oh, man, you're at Pace, like, you must be a 10 out of 10. When we were at Pace, the program was still growing. Mm-hmm. So basically, thank you, kids of today, because we put the program on our back and built it for you. We had rehearsals in mop closets that became your vocal studios.
Oh yeah, you know how many like rehearsals that I had to do in like classrooms for How I Learned to Drive?
Yeah, or just just always being in the hallway.
Yeah. I auditioned people. Where did I audition people? I actually remember bringing. There was a late auditioner. I already like had the cast set, but I'm the type of person who's like, if I have the cast set, but then this person comes in and I think they're better for this role, then I'll switch the casting. I had her come to my apartment building.
Yeah, which I don't know if that would be allowed today.
No. It wasn't in my apartment. It was like in a stairwell. Like we had a very fancy apartment building downtown. I lived with like my current roommate and somebody else. And I think it used to be like a law office, so there was like an open air.
Were you at John Street?
No, it was Maiden Lane.
There was a lot of upper
Everyone was at Maiden Lane. And there was like this huge like open air section where they had like stairs going up, so I auditioned her there. Yeah, she didn't get into the show.
No.
Yeah, and then I remember auditioning somebody for my student directing festival show like outside on the street. Mm-hmm. Because they only had like a couple of minutes to audition for me. So I'm like, I'll meet you before your class.
Yeah, but even that with the student directing thing, some of my best experiences there. Mm-hmm. Remember Studio 501, like when we got like our own space in the big building?
I'm not talking about that because I did not have a good experience.
I had great experiences in 501.
Again, everybody has different experiences.
So I guess, so if we're comparing errors, I still think I got a great acting education there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the program, I know for a fact actually, because I've gone back there to speak a little bit, I know the program has expanded to really give a fuller how to be an actor education as opposed to just becoming a good actor. Yeah. Because those are two very different things.
Mm-hmm. And what's great about, sorry to interrupt, but what's great about Pace too is that they let you audition.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, they let you audition outside. And there's a lot of people who are like somebody who just got cast in the revival of Caroline or Change is a Pace senior, I think, and she was in Dear Evan Hansen. When she was a freshman, she played the lead in Caroline or Change. I only know this from reading the article about it.
But that type of stuff makes a difference, and I remember that being a giant decision factor for me about Pace, not only allowing but encouraging you to and giving you room in your schedule to actually go work. And I started auditioning outside the program, like my second semester at Pace, and I worked a decent amount, and Pace was always very accommodating to that and accommodating to my schedule, and now even more so, because when we were there, there was 3 majors, and now there's like 18. There's every discipline of acting for film and TV and voice and commercials and dance and theater.
We just had those. I remember when I think I was graduating, dance just became a minor.
Yeah, correct. The dance was still not a major when I was there, so. Yeah. But they have. So anyway, comparing eras, I think I had a great education there because I really dove into doing as many shows as possible. Mm-hmm. There wasn't, getting a main stage show obviously felt good when you were, at
I wanted to mention you in Spring Awakening because it was a year after you and I did Doc Sees God, and I just remember going there and being like, it's going to sound like so cheesy, but deal with it. I don't remember who. I think I was like with Lisa Lamothe, and we went down to see it.
I ran into Lisa on the train the other day with my wife. She's such a sweetheart.
I love her. She's just like a shiny human being.
Yeah, she's great.
She's just a gem. Anyway, I just remember like seeing you as Moritz and just being like so proud. I'm like, oh my god, he's grown up so much. I'm so proud of him. I was like, he grew as an actor. And I was so proud of you. I never told you that.
No, you didn't.
10 plus years later.
Yeah, it makes me feel good now.
No, seriously, because we did Doc Sees God, and it was I had fun. I had
a great time doing that show, but there was also kind of easy, casting for me to do that. Martz, and now again, should you be talking about your work in college as a professional actor? I don't know, but that was one of the great benefits of
everything's a learning experience.
That was one of the great benefits of going to a school like that it allowed you to at least feel somewhat confident going after like against type roles, and I could trace a lot of my journey as an actor and whatever skills I now have to 2 productions at Pace, and both of them would normally never cast me. Like New York or LA would never cast me in those roles.
What was, because I don't know your college career other than
who should know my college career? It was Spring Awakening and Bug. Tracy Letts' Bug.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I couldn't see Bug because that coincided with How I Learned to Drive.
Yes, it did. That's why I couldn't do. That's why I didn't go out for How I Learned to Drive.
Also, I didn't see Bug because I knew what it was about, and it's just not my type of show to see.
Yeah, it's a rough one. It's still the main. Now I'm actually old enough to do it for real, and if there's anyone listening out there that wants to put up Bug, I'm ready.
Give me money to direct the show, guys. Well, no, also the thing is, too, is because I'm sure you knew there was like a lot of drama between like my senior year with like the class being divided.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, a lot of people thought I didn't see Bug because of like who directed it and da da da. And I was like, no, it's just like not my type of show to see.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, I'm even if I don't like a certain person who directs something, doesn't mean it's going to prevent me from seeing something because my friend's in it.
Yeah, that, and if you can't go see work of people you don't always agree with, you won't go see anything
Exactly.
in this business.
Yeah, I mean, I will say though, if it deals with Taylor Swift, I definitely will not see it or pay money for. I mean, I did watch her Netflix documentary, but I refuse to pay money to see Cass.
Yeah, it looks kind of interesting. Also, this is a great mug, by the way. You guys can't see this, but she has a Spring Awakening mug out for me.
It's the revival one because our guest last week had the original, and I picked this one because Dom actually produced it.
I co-produced it. I was one of the producers.
One of the producers, which again we'll get into.
Yeah. But talk about, you know, nice, I've had a couple of nice full circle, you know, from Pace and even from high school moments of shows that I did in college and then work on to some degree professionally, you know, to work on Broadway. So that's a nice, you know, connective tissue there.
That's awesome. So you graduate. So after graduation, were you still like steadily working and getting jobs through Pace? Like when you graduated, what happened?
So when I was a senior, I booked a feature film that paid well and it was a good role, and I was working with, you know, one Academy Award nominee and a Golden Globe winner.
You can name drop.
And I thought I made the young, cocky mistake of thinking, oh, once you book a couple of things, like it's going to be off to the races. And mind you, throughout the whole time I was in college, I was paying for college and paying to live on my own from being a bartender. You know, like there were some acting things that paid well, but mostly it was bartending. And I remember leaving college thinking, oh yeah, maybe I would have to, you know, be able to stop this revival job. I was wrong. It was so wrong about that. And then, you know, the world has kind of changed the last 10 years.
So then why don't we talk about that? Because I mentioned it earlier. So Dom and I are friends on Facebook. Yes, I stalk him sometimes. Beautiful wedding, by the way, in Mexico.
Thank you.
And your wife is stunning.
Inside and out.
Just,
the best
she looks like
the best decision I've ever made.
Good. I'm happy.
Thank you.
Yay. I don't have the applause on now. I'm sorry. What's her name?
Emily.
I hope to meet her one day.
I hope so too.
Yeah, it'll happen. It'll be great when you win your Oscar. I'll be like, Dom, come on the podcast. Anyway, so Dom posted this thing because you still bartend, correct?
Yes, yeah, 2 nights a week.
Do you not want to say where?
Yeah, at the place called a really nice cocktail bar and restaurant called The Grange in Harlem.
Yeah, go check it out, guys. Anyway, so you mentioned that because you're in The Irishman.
Yes.
In the movies, nominated for what, 10 Academy Awards?
Yeah, 10, yeah.
Which we will get into. Dom and I actually talked about it for a little bit before we even started recording. So, and that's where the other thing comes into place, where the Oscars is the holiest day of the year for me. So we will talk about it. I will give my predictions. So you mentioned that you were, oh my God, what's the word? I'm having a brain fart. Recognized behind the bar.
Right.
And people were like, well, you're in this big movie.
Yeah,
like,
I should say, I mean, it is a big movie, but I only have 2 scenes in this thing. But they do kind of stand out.
People don't realize, like, you could be in this big movie and have, like, a line or whatever, but that doesn't mean that, like, the next day you're going to have...
No. Especially because there was
dollars in your pocket.
Just over 2 years between shooting the movie and the movie coming out. So, you know, what do you do in the meantime?
And I looked at the IMDb, and that cast is like the longest cast I've ever seen in my life.
No, that's crazy. So that'll be something I could be proud of for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know,
But let me just really quickly say what you said in your post. And they said, like, oh, well, you know, you were in this movie. You know, why are you bartending? And you said, but you didn't say this to them, but you posted on Facebook, like, F you, I still have student loans. Not pretty much like that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so great. And I was like, I really want to get Dom on the podcast to talk about that, because I think that's so important that, you know, just because you think you have this big break doesn't mean that you're going to be, you could be a working actor and you can still have some money in the bank, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, you're this huge, like, $1 million actor.
But I also think that's a product of, you know, the era and time that we're living in. And I've booked a couple of nice jobs since Irishman. I've probably done half a dozen films since.
Lazy Susan. That looks hilarious.
I have a couple of really good scenes in, largely one-on-one with Sean Hayes, you know, who's one of the great comic actors, period, of the last generation or two. You know, and Allison Janney's in it, Matthew Broderick.
My name Doppelganger.
Your name Doppelganger.
Yeah.
Margot Martindale, Danny Johnson. The cast is crazy. Like, when I showed up and on the call sheet, it was Sean Hayes, Matthew Broderick, and me. like that, that is a good feeling. But still, people think you book this one thing, or because of, really social media is kind of the point I want to get to, that like I made like a few $100 a day on there, and that's it. Then the job's done. There's, especially when you're working, with the exception of something like Irishman, which that paid well, but most films today are made independently and then picked up.
Yeah.
So unless you're the marquee name,
and you
unless
just
you're
had a film get picked up too.
Yeah, which I had nothing to do with producing. I was just in
Yeah.
it. That's called Sarah Q, John Gallagher's Sarah Q, who is
not to be mistaken for John Gallagher Jr.
Yeah, not John Gallagher Jr. But John Gallagher is the original John Gallagher. I mean, he's a New York institution, filmmaking, 40 films over the last 40 years under his belt. But but even something like that, you're working with that again. I was working with Academy Award nominees and a good couple of scenes, and scenes that made the final edit, and having solid dialogue and getting to feel about that. But again, like, you make a few hundred, maybe even reach 1,000, a little bit more than that. How do you live in New York for a year on that one job? You can't.
Yeah.
Like even if that job pays your rent for a month, what are you doing the next month? And I made the mistake when I was 26-ish, 27, 25, 26, when I started, kind of all of a sudden producing Broadway, which is nothing that we could talk about, or co-producing on Broadway, I should say. I was, forming a company, and we all were being lauded with these these awards. The first couple of shows that we worked on, still bartending throughout that. Still trying to audition as much as I can.
Didn't you were a bartender at Latitude or Social?
At Latitude and Social and West End, which was all the same company.
Latitude
is where I met my wife.
I just this immediately came into my head because your old producing partner. I don't know if you want to say his name or not.
Nope.
All right. Somebody wants
his loss.
Bye. You guys did a production of Red Light Winter, right?
Yes. And that was Latitude, and we had
and you had like some sort of benefit or something.
Yeah, the owner of Latitude, the owner of our bar, liked us and supported us enough that he paid for like half of the production. But even that was,
they were supposed to make a movie of that. With,
a bunch of times. Kirsten Dunst and Billy Crudup, I think, right?
I think it was like Ben Foster. And then, like, Mark Ruffalo was going to be a part of it, and now it's just not happening.
Yeah, it should still be. Oh, God, I would sign me up right now. I'll do it for free. Red Light Winter at Pace is actually why I picked doing Red Light Winter. My former partner was not familiar with the title.
Let me see if I get this cast right. I like how I'm just talking about college. I haven't done anything after college except work and, see shows. I think it was Rory, Arno, and Abby.
I think that's correct. Yeah, because Mike, my best friend Mike, my other best friend Mike, and I guess I'm basically just going through my groom's party right now. Mike and Chris Burt were the understudies in that. So
far,
Mike.
What is Chris Burt doing? Is he still acting?
He is. He's in London acting Up a Storm right now at Lambda. So yeah, I'm very happy for him. But with Red Light Winter, is that where we were on?
Yes.
Former business partner. So Latitude, the bar that I worked at, the owner put up half the money for us to, essentially put up a show. But that was my first toe dip into producing. But first of all, I was 22 at the time. It was, just a few months removed from being in college. Which, when I say the word producing, I did not know what that meant.
So let's talk. So we're getting into the producing aspect, which is great. So let's talk about, and I think this is how you're beginning to talk about how you got into producing. Yeah. So let's concentrate on that aspect right now, and then if you want to throw in the acting thing here and there, we can. Yeah. So, 22, out of college, what's up?
So again, I'm bartending, and I quickly realized my delusions of I've booked a couple of things, so I was going to be a working actor from that day forward. Were quickly going by the wayside, and I got a great job at a bar here in Midtown. At the time, it was great anyway, called Latitude, not far from where we are now on 8th Avenue.
Didn't that close? Or Social?
No, Social did. Now they're a sister bar. And they're obviously like a lot of places, the staff was full of artists, and there was one bartender who I had become friends with, who was also a Pace alumni, but was a few years older than me, so we didn't really know each other.
Who will remain nameless.
Yeah, who will remain nameless. And I turned to him one day and said, kind of similar to my story of in college, like 3 months had gone by where I hadn't done any acting. So at the time, that was like, oh my God,
You're talking about like when you were in Boston or when you were in Pace, you didn't do any acting?
After Pace, when I'm at the bar, saying like, similar to what I felt in the beginning of school, like, oh my God, 6 months had gone by, and this, like, oh my God, 3 months had gone by. It's college, you're doing it every day, you get to feel like an actor every day. And I said, why don't we just like do a show? You know, why don't we just put up a show? Why don't we just rent a theater and, steal some lights and go and go do something. And he was just like, I don't understand what you mean. I was like, I don't know what I mean. I was like, how much could this cost? And then, obviously not referring to Broadway or a commercial off Broadway or in the millions.
Off.
Yeah. So we looked into off Broadway theaters that would allow non-union or amateur productions. And this was 45th between 8th and 9th. This was right next door to where Kinky Boots was. I forget what was playing at the time. It might have been How to Succeed. So it was pretty midtown, right? And like most off Broadway theater should be a little dingy, but nice enough to feel comfortable to invite adults to.
I feel like that works for Red Light Winter.
Yeah, it was perfect for Red Light Winter. So the thing about Latitude sponsoring us. We applied for the rights, didn't get them, did it anyway, and then they approved it right before. So all we wanted to do was put up the show for one night. So we had a mutual friend direct. I was only 3 or 4 months removed from Pace at this point, so we literally rented a box truck, called some old teachers, and just stole everything from Pace's theater department. Nice. Lighting equipment, sound equipment, a couch, all the books, whatever. And so, but it was our intention to just put up the show for one night, and was gangbusters, all just for friends and family. This was even before Facebook was social media was kind of a thing, but not really. It was just hey, let's take off from the bar for a week, do a show, and then go back to our lives as bartenders. Just to feel like actors. So I guess that was me producing, because I was putting all the pieces together and hiring the team and a bunch of interns again from Pace. Because we were so quickly removed, so recently removed from that era, and gangbusters the first night. So the owner of the 45th Street Theater at that point said, oh, it's only Friday if you want to try doing Saturday and Sunday too. So we did, and we sold out the weekend, so to speak. Now granted, it was a 40-seat theater. It wasn't that big of a deal to sell out, but it felt good to put the pieces together for something. And I think we did the whole thing for, I don't know, $3,000 maybe, 2 of which came from the owner of the bar we worked at. The rest of it we paid for ourselves, with out of tips. And we actually ended up making a little money on it. That's great. Which is when does that happen? So we made $200 each or whatever it was. But it was okay.
Strip club right next to us.
Let's go. That, and funnily enough, my now wife had moved in with me 3 or 4 days before we put up that show. So if you know,
how long have you been together?
8 years, over 8 years now, almost 9 years. We're married just under a year. But we met. She was a few years older than me, and she was it for me the moment I saw her. But that's a whole other conversation.
Where did you guys meet?
At Latitude, working at Latitude. She was kind of like the head bartender, and we could have a whole other conversation about how we met, because that's a great story. And she is much more successful than I am now.
Does she act as well?
No. She is one of the highest ranking women in hospitality in New York now. She is a boss in every sense of the word.
Well, I work in hospitality if she's hired.
Especially where she's working now. Everybody wants to be there. So, but anyway.
You'll tell me later.
Yeah, I'll tell you later. That was where the producing kind of bug, I guess, started. But it kept being. But still, please, someone cast me in a grown-up production of Bug.
Again, if somebody gives me money, I will direct it. So
speaking of getting money, so all these things kind of happened accidentally, and it was always then and now, acting will always be the first thing for me. And bizarrely, I've probably made more money acting or performing than I have producing. People think you're a producer, so all of a sudden you have money, and that's not the case. So why don't you tell
the kids at home what a producer actually does?
Well, we could talk 5 podcasts about this, but let me make it specific to my first experience.
The longest this podcast has ever gone is almost 2.5 hours. You're fine.
Okay.
We're only 34 minutes in.
So my initial experience with producing was largely around raising money. Now, let me answer your question more directly. And producers have a bunch of different jobs and responsibilities and skill sets, and that also changes medium to medium. And what the word means changes medium to medium. So let's just say on Broadway, and then we'll do film and we'll do TV. So on Broadway, everyone above the title is a producer. Producer with a capital P. They all share the same billing, the same size font. But the difference is, so behind the scenes, there's the lead producers, and then there's co-producers. So the lead producers are always the ones on the top line, and then there's like a little bit of space between them, and then there's like a bunch of names underneath that are the co-producers, and then they present whatever the title is. So co-producers, largely, and that kind of depends on the lead producer you're working for, are the fundraisers who are going out and raising money. Now, some of them are just investors themselves, and they're just writing a check, and then they get to be above the title, which I personally kind of struggle with, because I think you should have to work hard at it. And then you get to be involved. So co-producers get to be involved with the sales and marketing and advertising structure of the show. So you're doing, weekly meetings about how you want to build and sell and market the show. And then throughout the run, you're a part of tracking the ticket sales and what initiatives can you do, and what should your commercials look like, and new merchandise, which you know about, and what should all that be. And then the lead
it's
producers.
funny, just like really quickly getting to the merchandise stuff. So having done merch, I mean, this year November would be 10 years doing it, but I haven't really done it in a very long time. A lot of people think that it's up to like the merch company that comes up with the logos and the designs. We'll come up with stuff, but it's also largely the producers.
Yeah, producer's a client. So.
Yeah. So, we can, because I also worked in the merch office for like a few months, and you can come up with some designs and go to the producers, and they'll say no or yes, or they'll tell you what they want. Like, I remember I did merch for Clybourne Park, and everything was white or beige.
Yeah, that's definitely a producer choice.
Yeah, that was a producer's choice. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's up to the merch company. It's really the producers have a large say in it.
No, yeah, and you're really only as good as your client is, speaking from like the advertising or marketing side of things. You want to hire the best people to do what they do to the best of their ability. But you're really going off of what the producer has to say. So now when I say that, I generally mean the lead producers. So lead producer is like both the CEO, both the chief financial executive and the chief creative executive. Finding a lead producer is the first or second step of getting something made, depending on how you look at it. Meaning, like, there's a script or there's an idea of a script, and the very, very first thing you need is a lead producer to bring it to fruition. Then that lead producer is going out to co-producers to help raise the money, and lead producers are... So every Broadway show is like its own company. Every Broadway show is like starting a new... It is starting a new LLC every time.
Is it up to the lead producer to decide who's directing the show?
Yes, the lead producer does everything. The lead producer hires a director, and they empower the director to make the right choices in the designers and trickle on down. But the lead producer has final say on everything.
What about casting?
On everything. They're hiring the casting director. Most of the time, though, is particularly for plays, especially in the climate today where you need a star to, unless you're at a not-for-profit house, when you need a star to compete commercially.
Well, there's also some musicals where you need that too. Like, look at The Music Man.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Scott Rudin is also he's the type of producer, and as a few other are on Broadway, that their friendships, their personal Rolodex, their phone book is... who's casting, those big names, and, they're paying big money too.
Yeah.
So that's theater. There's producers and co-producers, but everyone is called a producer. And I don't really care for how people just like throw around that word. Like, speaking for me personally, I genuinely always feel like I earn it because I'm going out and raising money for nothing. A co-producer on Broadway, that's actually probably the biggest difference. A co-producer on Broadway doesn't make a cent unless the show, meaning the investors that they go out to, like the equity investors, recoup 100% of their investment. So 90% of the producers on Broadway are working for free. Yeah. And that's why there's very few young people doing it, because it's not a young person's game when you need to pay your bills every month.
Have any of your shows recouped?
A lot of them have.
Okay, good.
And now recouped to a degree could mean you made 101% of your money back, or it could mean you made 200,
So question for you, as a co-producer, let's say something that, because you are Tony nominated.
Yes.
Let's say that one of your shows won a Tony.
Yeah.
Will you have an actual statue?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yep. Matt, Tony winning.
Yeah, I have I have five Tony nominations in my house, hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
And with All the Way, my very first show that won a Tony Award, nothing about what I did on that show was different than what I did as a co-producer in the subsequent dozen.
So if it won a Tony, do you not have a Tony award for it?
Yeah, so
you're
I was
technically
just
Tony winner?
so I was an associate producer on because I was not above the title on that, but only because it was my very, very, very first foray, and I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
And the show was basically already set. But I essentially did the work that I've done on every show since, but got above the title credit for it. I was just new and young, and now I could probably I might have been taken advantage of, but also I would not have any of the opportunities that I have now if that producer did not allow me to be a part of that team in some way.
How did you get a part of that team?
Oh, that's a epic journey. So similar to.
Do you want to give the abridged version?
Yes. So similar to like the Latitude Social bars we're talking about. Same owner, same bar, three more blocks down.
Are these questions like not what you expected?
Yeah, no, it's great.
You're like,
I was working at a bar.
I'm very good at questions.
I was working at a bar called West End, just 3 blocks up from Latitude, 1 block up from Social.
West End is actually very good. It's 49th and 8th.
Yeah,
right?
49th and 8th.
I used to work at the hotel across the street.
Yeah, love it there. Still very good friends with the management and the ownership there.
Very good food too.
And so I was, it's kind of like everywhere I've bartended. I've always been on Broadway because it's always been, around me, in the theater district. So at that point, like I did that little Red White Window show. I started like a small not-for-profit theater company that only did one show, whatever it was. But basically, what I was I was a bartender who was an auditioning actor, and sometimes work as an actor, but that's who I was.
Yeah.
And at this point, I had already been at West End, a year and a half or 2 years. So I had regulars, and there was a lot of, it's Midtown, so there's a lot of money, that hangs out in there. And
tourists.
Yeah, and tourists. But I had to let you know, West End found a way to be pretty local for the most part. And I was essentially interning. I was a glorified intern, but doing a lot of work for this Broadway record label that was producing cast albums. So I had a little bit of an in at for a show called Big Fish that was playing at the Neil Simon at the time, and
starring Norbert Leobetz.
Yeah, starring Norbert, and I EP'd that album, that cast album, and so that kind of gave me like a little bit of insight into what producing was, because I helped get that album made, from a junior executive level position. Which again, I was doing well bartending and acting, whatever. So basically, I worked 100-hour week my entire 20s. So,
you know what that's called? Hustler.
Yeah, that's what. And everyone who doesn't have a trust fund needs to do that to succeed.
If my mother was here, she would sing "You're a Hustler, Baby."
Yes, exactly. I'm just a Brooklyn kid hustling my way to the top.
Baby.
So. Big Fish closes.
I just want to say really quickly, Dom and I keep moving in our seats to get comfortable. That's the squeaks that you keep hearing.
Big Fish closes, and a show is announced, All the Way by Rob Schenken, which is starring Bryan Cranston, which would make a pretty big hullabaloo. Its time in Boston was coming to Broadway, so I know close to nothing about what producing Broadway means at this point. Besides, I think I have some ins because I've made some friends with people who worked on Big Fish, and maybe I could ask them some questions. And I did ask them questions, and it was basically like, if you could raise some money, you might be allowed in the door, and then you'll see how much involvement you could have, and then. So all I knew about All the Way was it starred Bryan Cranston, and at the time, this is when the final, the back 8 of Breaking Bad, were playing. So he's arguably the most famous actor in the world at this point. And it was written by Rob Schenken, who wrote one of my favorite plays, the Pulitzer Prize-winning Kentucky Cycle. And it was about LBJ, and it was about history. So basically everything that interests me was happening across the street from where I work. And I was like, okay, so what can I do? I'm obviously immediately, I think, how could I get seen for this? And at this point, I maybe only had 1 or 2 Broadway auditions, so I don't know why I thought I can get seen. But how can I? Oh, wait, they're moving the entire company from the Boston production, so they're not.
You know what? Understudies.
Yeah, but even that, the whole company was moving.
Yeah.
So it's okay. There's really not an opportunity for me to even to try to audition for this thing. Also, there's really no age appropriate role for me or type of appropriate role for me. It's I don't really have the technical expertise or really even an in to try to see if I could intern for or observe on one of the design teams. I was just what can I do? This is all born of my unhealthy obsession with Breaking Bad and Brian and history in general. I was what can I do? It's maybe I could try to be a producer on this thing, because I've been producing little not-for-profit stuff or whatever it is. I was okay, and I talked to the 2 friends that I had that had any peripheral involvement with Broadway, and I'm now seeing they really weren't, because Broadway's this big and everyone. And it was like, so what can I do? They were like, I feel like the show is funded, but if you raise some money, the lead producer, likes money, so maybe you could, go
How do you go about
do
raising
that.
money?
Zero idea at this time. Absolutely zero idea how to raise money. I had no money then. I mean, maybe have a little bit more money now than I had then, but definitely had no money then, and none of my own to put in anyway. And I raised the money from regulars at my bar, people I've been pouring drinks for a year or two or three that were kind of on my journey with me, as an actor and as a, creative person, and someone who wants to put the puzzle pieces together for things. And I raised almost $250,000 from a few guys who had just been sitting at the bar, with me. And so I snuck into final dress of All the Way, and I knew final dress was happening because I knew the show was in rehearsal, and I worked across the street, so know what's going on. The thing. So I sneak in to final dress, which was remarkable at the time considering the security around Cranston or anything to do with him. And I know the lead producer's name. The lead producer is Jeffrey Richards, and he's kind of like this mythological figure at this point. And he still now is one of the biggest, he's top 5 producers on Broadway of his generation. And it was horrible snowstorm that day, and everyone was soaking wet, and he was soaking wet, and I was soaking wet, and I was just like, I can't believe this is the guy that everyone bows down to, whatever it is, because he just looks so normal. Because we were all just so disheveled, like there was, when you think Broadway, and especially the night before, not opening, but the night before first preview, you think everyone was going to be in like tails, right? Yeah. And no, and he was in like boots and a vest and like trying to wipe the water out of his eyes, and I bum rushed him. So this is 24-year-old me. So I basically bum rush him, and I'm just like, hi, I'm Dominick LaRuffa, and Bryan Cranston's my favorite actor, and I love history, and Robert Schenken's one of my favorite playwrights, and I know everything about LBJ, and I raised $250,000 for your show, and I'm an actor, and I would really like to be a part of it. And he was just like, what? He was just, like, I was just word vomiting all over the place. And
that was like me with Laura Linney the other night.
I imagine. And he just kind of stared at me. He was just like, I don't really understand what you're saying to me right now, kid, but like my show is about to open tomorrow, and like I'm here, and also like, how'd you get here? And I was like, oh, I'm friends with a name I made up. I'm just full of lies. And to his credit, he brings over his like junior partner at the time, and we exchange information, and he was like, just tell him everything you told me, and like, I gotta go. I was like, okay. So to his credit, I'll never ever forget it, 10:45 the next day, we get a call, I get the call saying, be at my office at 11 o'clock and explain to me everything that you had to say last night. So I was nowhere near Jeffrey's office at this time. But I get there at like 11:07 or whatever it is. So he sits me and my former partner down, and he was just like, explain to me, because especially when I say former partner, we didn't have a company, we didn't have an LLC, we didn't have whatever. We were just friends who were trying to make some stuff. Like, we were like, oh, this is my business partner, but we didn't actually have a business or anything. Our business was working and then getting trashed after hours. Like, that was our business at the time, And then like, maybe we'll do a play. Like that was as far as our business plan went. So he was like, okay, explain to me, how this happened. So I tell him everything I just told you. And to his credit, he says, okay, you will take your money, but for no points, meaning there's no way you can make money on it because, again, fundraisers make money and the, once the show sees profit, and we can't put you above the title as a producer, but how about we give you an associate producer credit? So basically, I handed over $250,000 of other people's money for nothing. But at the time, I genuinely was thinking as big picture then as I do now, saying, there's no way this show is not going to be huge. And I didn't even have a frame of reference of the business of Broadway to say that at that point. I just understood as a fan of what Broadway was, and I understood what Bryan Cranston meant at the time. Yeah. And I was like,
it still does.
Yeah, it still does. And I was like, there's just no way the show is not going to be a giant success. Yeah. And first preview, I turned around to everyone who could hear me. I was like, this is going to win a Tony, and this is going to be the biggest thing. And they were like, who is this child to telling us what this is going to what this is going to be? So I hand over these investors money. It's the first time I learned what that paperwork transaction looks like, whatever it is when you get an associate producer credit. 2 days later, he puts it up on the house board, and like your name is there. Kind of a lot of names away from Cranston's, but there nonetheless.
But you were under Cranston.
Yeah,
and you were the bottom to his.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and my life changed. My life changed dramatically from that point on because all of a sudden.
Now the biggest question. Did you get to meet Bryan Cranston?
Oh yeah, no, we became friends enough that whenever we see each other now, it's nice, and we could just like the last time I saw him, we were talking about baseball playoffs, and I say that casually, like it's still not a big deal, but he was talk about he's the most generous actor the most generous star I've ever been to be in the company of. And mind you, so I'll just tell you the Bryan story. And he also got me my first movie. Like my first movie that I ever worked on was with him. Like he's a good
He
man.
called you up and was like, "Do this movie with me."
He told me at the end of All the Way that he was going to be working on like this independent feature and that it's going to be a good one and to like get involved, and like he gave me like a heads up about it.
Oh, awesome.
So throughout the run of All the Way, so I'm there every day like I wrote the show, right? Because I'm just having a ball, and I shouldn't even have been to be allowed backstage with without permission or whatever it was. But I was there every day, like I was running the show, and he totally like bought into it and just. Every friend, every investor, every family member that went there brought them backstage, and he could not have been nicer. So let me explain what type of guy he is and how much it's influenced how I behave, or at least I should say how much it's reaffirmed how I want to behave.
So when you're Oscar, you will thank Bryan Cranston.
100%.
He is like instead of thanking God, I would like to.
Well, he is God as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. So he's the most famous actor on the planet at this point. Remember what it was like when the final episodes of Breaking Bad were airing. Like Al Pacino and Anthony Hopkins had just publicly come out saying Bryan Cranston's the great actor of our time. So like imagine what that does to one's ego. He's in his late 50s. He's making his Broadway debut, leading a cast of 20-something. It's a 3-hour, essentially Shakespearean epic that would tire out anyone, let alone someone with his level of notoriety. So he does this 3-hour show, 8 shows a week, is backstage with everyone. And now one side of you could even say, well, if people are backstage, they must have some notoriety or reason to be there. They're a friend, their family, they're friends of the cast or crew, whatever it is. So maybe that's why he's being nice. But it wasn't just nice. He would really, really talk to people. You brought your mom, you brought your dad, whatever it is. He would ask questions. You brought someone who's like, I'm a young actor. He would give advice. He would really, really be there with you. And then the most remarkable thing about that, with the throngs of human beings waiting for him at the stage door every day. So now, like chronologically, we're going 3-hour show, half hour, 45 minutes backstage. He would then go do the same thing with everyone outside.
Yeah.
For an hour and a half. And he did that 8 shows a week for 5 months.
Yeah.
And there is that basically. I don't want to say it taught me, because I like to consider myself someone who's been a decent person, but it definitely confirmed for me that no matter what height you reach, no matter what your status is, there is no reason to conduct yourself with anything other than generosity or kindness. And by no means am I saying like you have to be best friend or be completely available to everyone all the time. That's not what I'm saying either. But human to human interaction, there's just not an excuse to be unkind. And if he was able to do that, everybody else should follow suit.
I mean, believe me, I've met my fair share of a-holes at the stage door. And in life. But, I think it's really interesting, too, because, if you're a well-known actor, you're thinking the people you work with, and you think this, and you think that. It's really I feel like, you can't have someone like Jennifer Aniston without fans.
Right.
And I feel like that's not spoken about enough in Hollywood. Because, I mean, in the music industry it is, because those are people, because they'll be like, I like to thank the fans. And the award shows, they don't really do that. Yeah. I mean, obviously, for whatever reason.
Yeah, it seems more transactional in music than it is. Yeah,
but, like, you wouldn't, the A-list celebrities, people, you're not going to have a career if people aren't going to see your movies or watching your TV show. And, I don't know if Bryan Cranston feels that way, but that could be a part of it, stage dooring. And
well, that, and I also think of something like him, and then even me to a certain degree, like, some people think, like, wow, Dom, you're working so much, that it must be, to me, it's, I'm still not supporting myself 100%. I maybe like 80% supporting myself as an artist, but still not there just yet. So if it happens for me, it'll happen for me in my 30s or my 40s. When I'm really, really, really doing it.
Like You know,
Well, don't ever stop, because
one
it
of
could
your
happen.
favorite professors in college told me that I'm not going to get cast till I'm older.
You know what? I think the same person who we're talking about told me that as well, and I've kind of been waiting my entire life to get to my 30s. I even, I always joked as like an 18 or 19-year-old, like I can't wait to be 35. That's really when I'm going to start working. So I got a few years left
You
of
know
that.
what I've been thinking about lately, though?
Yeah. But wait, on
Continue.
on the Cranston point,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't. He was like, he did Seinfeld and he did whatever it was, but it didn't really happen for him until his mid-40s with Malcolm in the Middle. But even still, that he was just the dad on Malcolm in the Middle.
I think people forget that he was Malcolm.
Yeah,
was
Emmy nominated, by the way.
Yeah.
So that was when he started. Well, and this is him telling me this.
Mm-hmm.
That was when he started. By season 2, he was making enough money to be, all right, cool, I'm set now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm good to go. And that show had however many season run.
Mm-hmm.
Especially network TV money at the time. Like, that was, where he was really like, okay, cool, I can support my family, I can have a nice house, I don't really have to stress retiring so much, whatever it is, I'm making, making good money now. But even then, he was just the dad from Malcolm in the Middle. And then, then that hard shift to Breaking Bad, money aside, which obviously, he'll think about what it's like to be the star of the greatest drama ever. His real fame and notoriety happened to him in his 50s.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why he handles himself with such couth and grace and just such a kind demeanor.
Mm-hmm.
And we should all act like that.
Yeah, just be kind to people. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah, because I know a lot of, I hate to use the term like B and C listers, but just like, working actors that their faces and they work or blah, 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 but they're not, major A-list star, and they all suck.
Dom, you can say whatever you want to on this podcast. You can name drop, you can cuss somebody out.
Yeah, I met a lot of pieces of shit that are B list actors.
I feel like, it's funny
do you know who I am or who I'm or what I'm working on? Shut up.
I feel like there's some people. I have a guy friend of mine who was on this podcast. He was maybe like our third guest, or second guest. He and I are still very good friends. It wasn't that long ago, but it's interesting because you'll meet some actors who are very like intellectual and talk to you about things, and they're just like an obnoxious intellectual. Yeah. And then they'll have people who are like, I'm an actor. Da, da, da. He's not like that. He'll have like an intellectual conversation with you about a show, but he's not obnoxious like it. You know what I mean? There's some people who's like, I'm an actor and I feel this way, and those people just annoy the fuck out of me.
Yeah, and that's true basically across any discipline in the arts. I've recently worked with a director that while he actually might be a genius. I don't know. I've never met anyone who loves the sound of his own voice so much.
It's not Martin Scorsese.
No, not at all. No, and I should say an unknown genius, like an up-and-coming director.
We don't have to name drop certain names.
Yeah, and it's just like, I get the intellectual vision you have here, but also can we just work, Yeah.
We're just going to sit in silence for a moment? Yes.
But that's why genuinely that's what I guess a moment of silence is, because just like shut up,
Yeah.
Just like know when to stop talking and let's get to work.
Yeah. I can sometimes be like that at work when I'm just talking about theater to someone. I'm like, oh my god, this show is amazing. Blah, blah, blah. And I'll like drop theater knowledge on them, and they'll get like really excited over the prospect of being like, I didn't know that about a show. Yeah. It's very exciting.
Well, fun facts are always fun.
I always call them fun facts because you have people from like the middle of nowhere who've seen like Wicked for the first time. Yeah. And I'd be like, Wicked has been around for Broadway. Wicked. No, I'll call my office and be like, I need tickets for Wicked. Wicked. Helikanama. So let's jump ahead, because I feel like we've been talking, and you said you can do like 20 podcasts about this. You're always welcome to come back whenever you want to.
Sign me up.
No, seriously. You don't even have to win your Oscar yet.
As long as you keep this inventive candle lit.
Oh yes, the hot priest candle is lit.
Yeah, what's going on there?
Do you not watch Fleabag?
I don't.
It's okay. So
I know Phoebe Waller-Bridge is like the big.
So this is Andrew Scott, aka the priest.
Okay.
From Fleabag, hot priest. So every podcast, I have my hot priest candle lit.
Okay, yeah. For those of you at home who can't see what I'm looking at.
Oh no, they've seen it on my. If you go onto the Theater Enthusiast podcast on Instagram, you will see it on there. And I'm drinking out of my hot priest mug that says Neil. Every podcast, I do that.
It's pretty funny.
And then every guest has a different mug. And like I say in every podcast, I have a Fiddler on the Roof mug that I hope that somebody who was in that production comes onto the podcast. So
all I'm saying is the hot priest who's making eyes at me is making me struggle with my childhood.
Listen, I'll just turn him around. I'll look at Andrew Scott. It's fine.
I'm just a Catholic kid from Brooklyn who had things happen.
Yeah. Uh-oh. You know, it's interesting. So, coming to Broadway, and we also have a part of the podcast called Review It. So, if there's like a movie or a show or a TV show that you just watched that you want to review, you can do it. So, I'm going to do like a mini Review It right now. So the last weekend of January, I saw that musical Sing Street.
Ah, yes.
That's coming to Broadway.
Yes. I know very little about it, besides one of the cast members drinks at my bar.
Oh, well, cool.
Yeah.
It's actually based on a movie, the same guy who wrote and directed Once and Begin Again. And I'm like, they're trying to make up the new Once.
Yeah.
But the reason you like, oh, your childhood with cat, because in the musical / movie, the guy ends up going to like a Catholic school and there's a priest. So I really enjoyed it a lot. I don't think it's the next Once, and I hope it does well on Broadway, but I don't know how well it's going to do on Broadway.
Yeah, well, from my understanding, there's not like any real big names attached, so I want those shows to do well.
Yeah.
I want just a good piece to be a good piece.
I also just worry about the theater that it's in, because
the Lyceum. It's a Lyceum, and that theater just eats shows.
I don't know if it necessarily, the marquee eats shows. The Lyceum, it's just, John Leguizamo calls that side of Broadway the ghetto side of Broadway, because it's 6th Avenue. I don't know how the Princess Diana musical is going to do. Yeah. And I say that because I had a conversation with a guest about it today. But I will say, and I mentioned this on the last podcast because a very good friend of mine was on, and he's like, if you think I'm a theater nerd, like he's 10 times more knowledgeable. He wants to be like a theater historian. And I was saying, like, this season on Broadway is going to be like a fucking bloodbath. And you know, because you're in it.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many new shows coming.
And now we live in a time where, especially the last 3 or 4 seasons, especially, everything waits to open to right before the Tony nominations come out, because that's what, gives you the big ticket ride, and where all the ticket prices go up and the campaigns happen. And you have, the last couple of years, this year is probably no different. Like 16 new shows opening in a 3-week period.
It hasn't been like that in a really long time. There's 4 Best Musical nominees. Somebody said 5 the other day, but I think it's 4. Yeah. I feel like it's going to be Moulin Rouge, Girl from the North Country. I can't even think of what else is happening. On Broadway. 6 is
probably great. Moulin Rouge is different though, because that did open in the fall, and it
actually opened in the summer.
In the summer, fall part of the season.
Yeah. Well, I will say that it's definitely going to win like set design and lighting and costume. I don't see how it cannot win choreography. I would be shocked.
Yeah, well, that came in with a huge title and a well-known cast and all the music, and it had reasons why it stays open.
I pray to the Tony theater gods that Danny Burstein finally wins his Tony Award.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it was also the year of Hamilton that Fiddler on the Roof was nominated, but he should have won for Fiddler.
That was the year I did Spring Awakening. It was Hamilton. And,
I have to say, I really, 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 really loved that production of Spring Awakening.
Me too.
And
it's up there as the most important thing I've ever worked on, I think.
Do you feel a special connection to that, having done that show? Not the musical version in college, but doing like the straight play version of it?
Not only did the straight play version in college, I did the original version of the straight play as the first thing I ever booked as a professional actor, quote unquote, while I was at Pace. So
who did you play in that one?
I was George, I want to say. I was Melchior. I was Morris's understudy, and then I played one of the guys in it when I was 18. Whatever it was. But so Spring Awakening had like a really big influence and a really big part of my life.
I saw that musical a lot in college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me
so
too.
I will say there was like some aspects of the revival I liked a little bit better than the original, but that's not to say
it felt to me like the show should have always been that.
Yeah.
Like it just lent itself so nicely to the idea.
Well, it's interesting. Did you ever see the original production?
Of course, yeah.
So I think we talked about on the podcast that if that show were to open now, it wouldn't be as shocking as it was when it first came on Broadway. No. And I feel like, every couple of years you have like a Spring Awakening type following. Yeah. So like, it was Spring Awakening, then it was Next to Normal, and then it's now Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah, and then Be More Chill tried and failed.
Yeah, and I think like the next one is going to be the musical 6.
Yeah, but 6 is really interesting just from a producerial standpoint too. The lead producer is Kevin McCollum, who I think is arguably the most impressive producer of his generation. Drew the book out to do this. usually, so Broadway is small out of town, try a workshop, see if it works. New York industry only readings and labs and stuff like that to get it there. Out of town tryout where you're smaller, bigger out of town tryout like Chicago or something like that, or LA.
Yeah, I went to Boston to see
and then
Moulin
or
Rouge.
Boston, and then Broadway. But it's it's the Broadway route. Kevin McCollum, the lead producer of Six, doing productions all over the world of this show, which is usually what you want. You get your show to Broadway so that you can do tours and you can do sit downs and you can do cruise ships again. But that usually happens after Broadway. He did all these things first, so I want him in the show to win, just to say, hey, the rules don't necessarily apply. Figure out a way to be creative and get it done.
I have to say, when I first found out about the musical, because I'm a huge fan of Tudor history. Like one of the things when I went to London 3 years ago was to see the Globe and to see where Anne Boleyn was beheaded.
Yeah.
Like that was like my top 2 things I had to do in London.
It's awesome.
Morbid, but whatever. I laughed my ass off when I first found out about this musical. I'm like, how could this be good? And then next thing you know, it's like, it has this huge following. It's supposed to be absolutely incredible. And I haven't listened to a single piece of music from the show because I don't like going into a show having already listened to like the cast album. I mean, Hamilton is different because Hamilton is like in the zeitgeist of the universe. Yeah. So obviously I know songs from it and I haven't even seen it yet. But something like Six I don't want to listen to until I actually see it, and I am seeing it, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I tend to like going in having a little bit of knowledge about things, but outside of the historical knowledge that I have for Six, I don't know anything about the production, and like I really look forward to seeing it.
It's, for what I was told, it's like 80 minutes. It's kind of more like a rock concert.
Yeah.
I do have a dress that reminds me very much of like being like one of the girls from Six.
Yeah, there isn't a lot this season that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see. But Six is one of them.
The revival of Company.
Yeah, but even that, like,
I'm so excited.
I don't know.
What else? I have tickets. I have like between like January and May, including a concert at the Beacon, I'm seeing 11 things.
Interesting.
So
like I love Katrina Lenk. Like she's gonna be magnificent in Company. But I don't know, like, I'm not a giant fan of revivals to begin with, unless there's something really unique you're going to do with it.
Unless it's Tom Hiddleston in Betrayal or Spring Awakening.
Right, like I said, but those things were really, really unique versions
it's interesting
of
too,
it.
like, I really
completely different takes.
Let's talk about Betrayal really quickly. So, Harold Pinter is not for everybody.
No, I don't love him.
Yeah. I don't know enough Pinter pieces. I will say that, and I'm sorry that I keep bringing up college, but I think this was before your time. There was a Pinter play that they did, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, it's definitely not for everyone.
Yeah, but it has that I fucking loved Betrayal.
Yeah, thank you. So it made me love and appreciate Pinter more.
You want to hear one of my favorite parts about it?
Yeah.
So I'm with one of my best friends, who you know, Carrie. And so there's a part of the show where Tom Hiddleston's daughter appears. Yeah. And in that scene, he's just sitting, like, she's sitting on his lap, and Carrie turns to me and she goes, she's so lucky.
That's so funny. He's doing some of the most profound work of his career, but everyone just like, he's so hot.
Like, just Tom, and then like that scene where he's just like crying. Oh, it was so good. I loved the last part of the show. I mean, it's not on Broadway anymore, guys. I'm not spoiling anything. But like that scene where like they were holding hands and then like.
Yeah, the final moment.
Yeah, the final moment.
Yeah, because it paints the whole. It sums up everything, and then where they could potentially go. Backwards.
And
Charlie Cox is magnificent in it as well.
I don't remember whose hand breaks off from hers. Was it Charlie Cox or Tom Hiddleston's?
Pretty sure it's Charlie's.
Yeah. I thought that part was so great. I love a good directorial moment.
Yeah, and even just like the simplicity of that. Like I think Jamie Lloyd is on either side of the pond, one of the great directors of his time.
Yeah.
And he made me love and understand. More importantly, he made me understand Pinter. It made me understand the point of Betrayal. And because it's a pretty often revived show. Like I saw it a couple of years ago with Daniel Craig and Rachel Weisz, who are both terrific.
And Rafe Spall, who's fantastic.
And they're great actors. And I remember just being like, like they were great in it, but like the show is like,
You know what's interesting too? Sometimes they'll like have a show come to Broadway, and you'll think it'll be really good because there's a big name in it.
Yeah.
And it's not that great.
Well, I'm not naive is the wrong word, but I still yearn to be idealistic for Broadway, where the star of the show should be the show. And if you happen to have a big name in it, that's a good actor. Like for me, Betrayal was kind of that Tom and Charlie and Zawe to a certain degree, but Tom and Charlie particularly with the whole Marvel thing happen to be big names, but they're just great actors.
But also, what's interesting too is that I don't know about Charlie as much. I know him from like that movie he did, like Stardust or something, and like him doing the Daredevil miniseries.
Yeah.
I don't really know of his stage career,
Yeah.
but I know that Tom Hiddleston actually has a stage career in London.
Yeah.
And so, like, to me, it's more annoying when somebody like Julia Roberts comes to Broadway just to do a show.
Yeah.
And
that's just also a money play.
Yeah, and I also think Julia Roberts, like, who doesn't love Julia Roberts?
Yeah.
I have nothing bad about her, but I will say she was the worst part about that show.
Yeah, what did she do?
It was 3 Days of Rain.
3 Days of Rain, yeah.
With Bradley Cooper, who has...
Bradley Cooper's got real chops.
He MFA in acting from Actors Studio, has like an actual stage career before he even hit it big in the movies.
Yeah, so people like... and
Paul Rudd even.
Paul Rudd is terrific. Scarlett Johansson's terrific in real life too. At least
in real life,
yeah, in real life on stage. At least in my experience with her,
I've seen her in two things. I feel like I'm just really jaded now from like seeing so many things since I was like 5. Mm-hmm. I'm aging myself with how many years I've seen over 100 shows in my lifetime, and awesome. I think it just takes a lot to impress me. And that's not to say that somebody isn't really great. It's just I personally have not been blown away by Scarlett Johansson on stage. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen Laura Linney on stage?
Did you not know my Laura Linney story?
Have you not, like she's one of
stalked my Facebook?
She's one of the. Oh wait, she's a film actor. I mean, obviously everyone knows her for Laura, film and TV. But Dom, like, oh no, this is a theater kid.
Clearly, Dom does not know me and has not stalked my social media before he came to this podcast. She's my favorite actress. I actually fell in love with her at her Inside the Actors Studio. I met her for the first time when she did Time Stand Still, and I cried, and she touched my elbows. A week ago today, and the playbill is right there.
Oh.
Signed.
I genuinely didn't see that when I asked. It's okay.
Signed by Laura Linney. I was the only person waiting for her at the stage door, which is insane to me. But there was also an autograph seeker there, too. Oh. And I'm messaging my phone like, there's a fucking autograph seeker here. She came out of the stage door. I started crying. And she was the loveliest. She's just so... She came out on stage. I cried. How she didn't win a Tony for Little Foxes is beyond me. But she also studied at Juilliard. Her father is or was a playwright. I don't know if he's still with us. But she has a fantastic career. And she's so talented. And she's also one of, like, the nicest, genuine humans. Sorry, my mic is, like, falling. And you also can just tell that she absolutely just loves actors, too. Yeah. I love her so much.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. I mean, maybe one day you'll work with her.
I don't know if I'll ever be good enough, but...
But when you do, Dom, I will go backstage and you will introduce me to Laura Linney. I'll try not to.
Do you need help with that?
Oh, no, I got it, but thank you.
For those listening, Tanny is struggling.
Oh, no, we got this, boo. Don't you worry. I don't know if you can hear me say that. We got this, boo. So, all right. Is there anything that you want to review? Anything you recently saw? Like, did you watch Cheer on Netflix like I did and everyone else did?
No, but if anyone got to this point in the podcast is still interested in what I have to say, it's kind of becoming
Hopefully
a theme. It's kind of becoming a theme in whenever I am fortunate enough to do these interviews or like do some quote unquote press. I like to talk about the level of influence social media has on us.
Yes. So I think I mentioned this on another podcast with someone. It's interesting too because if you look at certain Broadway actors or certain actors who have been on Broadway or trying to act, and you kind of look at their following, and I heard or read or something that apparently people like producers or casting directors want to look at your social media following. Is that a thing?
It's not a thing. It's almost the thing, especially outside of like, say, like the ensemble, the chorus and shows. Mm-hmm. But even that to a certain degree, they still want to go after people that could create their own free marketing, which I don't really know if I agree with that either, that if people are providing a service for your show, I think you should pay them, but that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. What I want to talk more about is this is super prevalent whenever I'm out in LA, and it has been for a number of years now, but it's really starting to seep into New York's blood, which I thought might not happen because we're supposed to be above the fray, here for that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I guess we're not. Social media, the pressure of it. Now this is societally in general, but not mm-hmm. just. Not just in our business, but I'm trying to narrow it down to this to our current subject matter. It's like you book one job and everyone doesn't understand why you're not just then always in Ibiza mm-hmm. afterwards. Why your life is expected to be one big beautiful party, mm-hmm. or even if you're booking a lot of things, and not just for me who still bartends or has other jobs. I know a lot of actors who work a lot and still have to do something else on the side.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make them any less professional. Mm-hmm. And not just actors, dancers, choreographers, directors, producers, who still have to do. Dom
is so strong. He's like breaking.
just tearing this kitchen apart right now.
Yeah, he's like my peninsula, as I call it.
Who have to do other things. Like, I have a close friend who is on TV all the time. He is on every network. He's on Netflix. He's on Amazon. He works
not on Cheer though.
But not on Cheer. He's on television all the time. But he also has a family, he has a wife and 2 kids and a house and a mortgage, and he has a marketing company on the side, on the side, or the acting is on the side, however you want to look at it. And I could give 36 examples of actors that you probably know their name, if not their face for sure, and I know them personally, and they still have to do other stuff.
Yeah.
So like the pressure of of what social media has done to us societally of having to present this I got it all together facade, and that there's not life responsibilities that get in the way. Not like anyone listening who has a trust fund or mommy and daddy pay for everything, this is not for you because you don't understand. But for the vast majority of us, that's just not the case.
Yeah.
And pursuing this business is hard enough to begin with. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't have to feel shame in earning mm-hmm. somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or even if you can get by as an actor, like where maybe like this year might be the first year that this is really true for me, where I could pay all my bills with the money I make as an actor, let alone the producing stuff. 2020 might be that year where I could fully support myself, even though my wife has her own great job and, income as well, but really just be a full-time working actor. I won't, because I've made this mistake before mm-hmm. where I think it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to keep my 2 shifts behind, not necessarily the bar I work at now, but any bar, just to have some sort of other revenue that's consistent.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily need to be bartending. It could be going to work for another producer or any anything else. It doesn't have to be the cliche of being in a restaurant or a bar. Yeah. But like, it's okay to, that's my point. I think I'm going to keep bringing this up. I started a few years ago and now, and I hope to not have to bring it up in 10 years and social media has gone away. But like, just the pressure of what it does to us and the depression I know it's put me into at times. And I have a pretty strong constitution and don't really judge myself by other people's mm-hmm. opinions, but it's hard. It's really hard in the the time and the era that we're living in to not judge yourself against what you perceive to be somebody else's perfect easy life. And like, if you actually peel back that curtain, the vast majority of us are all in the shit together.
It's interesting, Instagram changed their policy, so you can't really like
Are you talking about not showing likes?
Yeah.
So that's in beta testing right now, and I know this because I know someone working on the team for Instagram that's doing that. So I look at her phone and it just says...
stupid? It doesn't tell you the number, but you can still see who liked the post. So if you have the time, you can literally
just go through. Like, yes, but I genuinely believe even that, I think there's a lot more steps we can go. But just that one small step of not throwing that number in front of everybody else's faces will do wonders for like the American psyche and our soul. And probably encourage people to like your stuff even more because like I know like so I just started doing stories on Instagram and I sound like I'm 85, but I hate social media. So I just started putting them up maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And apparently, I even got Instagram 2 years ago. I should have had it 10 years ago. And I lost a representation once for not having social media, but that's another podcast. And,
again, whenever you want to put that.
And I will get like high hundreds, which is not a high number for a lot of people, but like high hundreds of views on stories from people that never like what I have to post. Mm-hmm. And it's because like that's anonymous, supposedly anonymous. I'm like, you could see it, but the world can't see that you watch somebody else's story, right? Only the person seeing it can. And it's like, if that could be applied to feeds and posts, I just think it'll help. I hate to say, like, the young people, like, or the generation coming, like, where you're like, I have an 18-year-old freshman college sister, and, like, she has grown up in her whole, and she's a smart, articulate, like, just, she's like a good kid, right? And unbiasedly, she's a good kid. Her friends and her world are just consumed by social media.
I have a brother and sister who are 13. I have to say, like,
And it has been since she's that age, is my point.
My sister, she, at 13, though, like, I love her. I have, like, the loves of my life are my brother and my sister and my niece. And my other siblings. But, yeah, anyway.
I get it.
And what I love about her, too, is, like, she just gets it like I do. And I'm just happy because I feel like she understands that it's not, like, the most important thing. But it should be like, oh, my God. I'm like, no, it's like, you're in the present. Like, put your phone down. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have another sister who's like, I remember we were in the car a couple of years ago and she was literally just like always on Snapchat. I'm like, put your fucking phone away and like live your life.
Yeah.
And I think it's the younger
generation. Because the real world is still out there.
Yeah.
And if you you just don't know how to live in it when you're always.
But the problem is too down. With that is that generation doesn't know anything other than that.
No.
So it's.
But like the pendulum has to swing at some point. It has to swing back to sanity.
If you have kids, don't give them phones.
Or even just like how does one go on a date now? Like just
think they're your phone. Like, oh my God, I don't even. That's another podcast. My non-existent love life and dating apps. All right, other questions for you.
Oh, okay, we're still going. All right.
Yeah, no, I told you we can. Do you want to stop?
Oh no, it's okay. Let's go potty waddies all day. Let's go.
Potty waddies, yes. What is your favorite role that you've ever played?
Have played or want to play?
We're not at that question yet.
Okay, that I've ever played.
It could be more than one.
Did an independent film called Sarah Q that's coming out soon.
Is that the one that just got picked up?
Yeah.
You want to tell the folks at home a little bit about that?
Sarah Q, directed by John Gallagher. It stars Sally Kirkland, Academy Award nominee Sally Kirkland, and Burt Young, Academy Award nominee as well. And like most of the cast of The Sopranos, so it was kind of a cool like Sopranos reunion that happens to be in the small New York indie.
And Dom has a scene where he gets kicked out of an acting class.
I do. I have a bunch of scenes in this with a good role.
Well, that's the only one that like.
But I had a great time telling probably my favorite of the Sopranos cast members, Federico Castelluccio, to like fuck off for a full day. Nice. And it was I just had so much fun doing that. And like it's rare I get to say that now. So that role, working role wise was a lot of fun for me. But like the most like in my Bones role was an off-Broadway play, a true off-Broadway play I did at 59's 59th a couple of years ago, called How Alpha Learned to Love. And my character was Tony, and I don't know if I've ever understood or wanted to be in someone's skin longer. Like I did the show for 7 weeks at my favorite off-Broadway theater in the city, so it felt cool to be really there. Cool 59's 59th, you've been.
I saw a really, really odd show there.
That role I did for 7 weeks, and I could have done it for 7 months or 7 years. Like I love doing it. I love doing it.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
So next question, what's your dream role or roles?
In the theater, I really am serious. I know I keep talking about something I did when I was 19, but I want to do Peter and Bug professionally.
Okay, again, I will direct it.
And I want to do Streetcar. I think a lot of actors say that, but I just it's something I want to do before I age out. Did you see the production they did in Brooklyn? Yeah, it was so good. So good.
I don't do Brooklyn because I'm claustrophobic and I don't take the subways.
I grew up in Brooklyn. You calm down.
No. Nothing gets it. It's just harder for me to get there because I'm claustrophobic and I don't take the subways. So it was a very big deal that I actually went to see this production because I fucking love Ben Foster. Yeah. And I think I actually spoke about this on the podcast once. He's so talented, but I feel like he's so underappreciated because he's not like one of your typical actors who's like out there. I think I spoke about this with Stefan actually because he did production again, college of Streetcar in college, and I keep bringing college up because most of the people on this podcast have been from college. And it's interesting too because there's an article where Ben Foster wanted to make his Stanley very ape-like.
Yeah, I remember reading that actually.
So when you see him doing the show, when he's like hanging on the set piece, or even when she like passes out before he's about to rape her, he's literally like leaning over her.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember reading this piece.
Yeah, and what's interesting too, we saw Vanessa Kirby as Stella, who is now known for playing Margaret, Princess Margaret in The Crown. Yeah. And no, that was a different person I saw. I saw a show called The Maids, a part of the Lincoln Center festival a couple of years ago, and it was Kate Blanchett and Isabelle Huppert and another actress whose name I can't think of, but she's in like Man from U.N.C.L.E. and she's in Guardians of the Galaxy, so I was getting the two of them confused. So you want to play Stanley one day?
Yeah, that's in the theater. And then this year, actually, I booked 2 films coming up. One, a comedy called Tale of the Wet Dog, and it's the first time I'm ever truly a lead. You know, there's like maybe it's an ensemble piece where there's 5 leads, but I'm one of them, and it's a comedy and it's completely against type, and I'm more excited than I have been in maybe 10 years to do something. And then
I think it's because you're playing a different type.
It's so different, so different. And then in the summer, I booked a movie called Abandoned Heights that Fred Roos is producing, who produced the 3 Godfather movies and Apocalypse Now, and this incredible 85-year-old guy.
Cast or no?
I can't now.
That's fine.
But there are names that and so the Abandoned Heights is a dark thriller noir drama, and I am playing the young junior detective to the senior retiring detective, who is one of the greats ever to do this, and all of my scenes are with him.
Have you worked with him before in a movie that's nominated for 10 Oscars?
No,
okay.
No, I haven't. And I can't wait to do that. So even that.
Is it filming in New York?
Yeah, both are filming in New York.
Oh, that's great. Do you travel a lot to LA for work, or is it mostly New York based?
I would like to go there never, if I can. Like the areas outside of LA, the part of the state of Southern California is terrific. Yeah. But LA itself, I shouldn't be allowed to be called a city. And just the people and the actors. I love being there for not acting purposes. I have friends and family there that it's great. But to go be an actor in LA, I would only go if for a job. Hey Dom, you book series, you do this. You'll be there for at least a year and be able to afford it, and that I would go. But to go there looking for work, absolutely never. I'm a New York kid through and through.
I feel like I would hate LA.
Yeah, no, it's the people. It's the people in our business.
I don't know. I'm actually one of my good friends from college who I love and adore lives out there, so maybe I don't hate everybody. Yeah. So
I say this as I am always there because my best friend lives there. But
do I know this best friend?
No.
Yeah, again from college.
No, not from college.
I was going to ask you something in the midst of you saying something. I don't remember.
Sorry.
I do want to talk Oscars as well.
Did you have more of those questions from your loose leaf?
I do have more.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
So, where do you see yourself in the future?
Oh.
I know. I have
should
good
lay
questions.
down. I should lay down and talk about this.
Listen, I've been
Take out your pipe, Freud.
Hold on. Is that how you smoke? Somebody had when I did Dog Sees God, that scene where I had to smoke a pipe.
Yeah.
Do you remember Tommy Slavinsky, I think it was, came up to me after the first show.
That's not how you do it.
Yeah, he's like, that's not how you smoke a pipe. I'm like, awesome.
That's funny. When I was doing Red Light Winter, Mike, also from college, my Mike, my best man who married Emily and I, he was like, that's not how you smoke a cigarette.
I was like, I've never smoked marijuana or a cigarette.
And I remember in between rehearsals in the show, previews in this and the show actually going up, me practicing smoking cigarettes, and I just couldn't. It just was the most unnatural thing in the world for me.
I do fake cigarettes.
Yeah, I just can't do it. So, but where do I see myself in 10 years? Yeah. My dreams kind of changed when I met my wife. I wanted to be single till I was 40, and now I can't wait to have kids, and I love spending time with my wife, she's very independent and has a big job and certainly doesn't need me. Which allows me to be the type of actor that I want to be. But I want to be an actor and a producer and a creator that also, I think a lot of people want this, but I'm really going to strive for it, to have both, to have a family life and to, be with the people that matter to me. So maybe that will mean I could only reach a certain level of fame, but I'm okay with that. I want to be a working actor. I want to be a working artist, and if that means I have to do other things like produce and write and things of that things of that sort, which I kind of like doing too. That's where I want to be, and I just want to be able to have a nice life. I don't need to be the biggest thing ever, but for me, I have to pursue it I want to be I want to be The Rock, and do absolutely everything and do it well.
You mean the actor The Rock?
Yeah.
Or a Rock?
No, The Rock, Dwayne American Treasure Johnson, and pursue being that so that if I fall a few steps short of that, it's still okay.
It's important.
You can't like shoot for mediocrity, you know.
So,
I want to shoot to be the very best and be okay with.
Go with what you're saying. Is it important to you to become a well-known actor, or are you just happy to be an actor who's just steadily working?
It's a hard question because you want to say no, I'm just here for the art, but in order to work, you people need to know who you are.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a very fair and a very honest question, and most people probably don't answer it honestly.
Yeah.
But work begets work, and notoriety begets work. You know, but known is relative. Like there's a lot of actors that we've even discussed today that we know, or that New York knows, or you know, like actors known.
So there's a lot of working actors who, because I
want to be known to be a reliable hire.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be known
So
as.
the reason I bring this up is, well, that's also an important
Who's
question.
in things that make money.
Yeah. So I mean, do you want to be like a well-known celebrity type, like who can make films, or do you want to be like known in the industry, but like
I would like to be well known. You could be like,
oh, look, it's that guy from that movie whose name I don't recognize. But
I would like to be well known enough that I can make the stuff I want to make.
Okay.
That's the dream for me.
Do you think you would be able, even now, just to go out and make things on your own? Because a lot of people in the maybe.
Well, a lot of stuff that I have done is at least me helping get it made. You know, like Lazy Susan, for instance, I did some producing on that.
Well, you know what I think you should do?
You got to produce your own work now.
A small production of Bug. All directed.
Yeah,
I'm dead serious. I haven't directed since college, and I've had that itch. I really want to direct The Shape of Things by Neil LaBute. Yeah. That's been like my dream show. Yeah. You're more than welcome to be in it.
Did you see it with Paul Rudd?
Not the original production. Okay. I actually, the whole like issue.
Because you keep talking about how old you are, so maybe you saw it. It was like 98 or 99 or 2000 or something like that.
Thank you for thinking I'm old, F you. We were in college together. No, I was supposed to direct it senior year of college, and very long, obnoxious, I hate everyone's story later, I didn't get the rights to it, so that's how I ended up doing How I Learned to Drive. But with that being said, like, even the summer going into college, like, thinking I was directing the show, I saw a reading of it that they did at the Laura Tell Theater, and it had Logan Marshall Green as the Paul Rudd character. They had Anna Camp as the Rachel Weisz character. Leslie Bibb, I think, did it, and, like, some other actor, but I'm not 100% sure. But, you know, I do really like Neil LaBute. I know he's a very controversial playwright. But it was a part of his, like, Beautiful trilogy. So it was, like, Shape of Things, Fat Pig, and then Reasons to be Pretty. And then Reasons to be Pretty became its own trilogy.
Yeah, I would love to work on all of those.
Yeah, well, if you ever want me to direct one of them, let me know. Because, again, I'm dying to... I wanted to do The Shape of Things for, like, so badly in college. And I couldn't get the rights because Reasons to be Pretty was coming to Broadway. So, and that just killed me.
It's funny, I remember that. I remember that happening for you.
Yeah, so that's... But I ended up doing How I Learned to Drive, so worse things have happened, and clearly that had a very profound effect on me. I don't know if it was the show or my fabulous directing. So, this next question doesn't really mean anything to you because it's like what led you to where you are now, which has been this entire podcast. Yeah. But I want to ask a very important question. What is it that you love about theater?
On the Theater Enthusiast podcast, I'm surprised we are just getting to this.
Excuse me, but there's other things we were discussing, and other things will be coming up shortly.
Harkening back to what I said about still trying to have a little idealism in my very jaded life. For me, I truly believe theater has been and will remain the last true art form that could set the world on fire and change it for the better. You know, we live in this content crazy time now, and with probably the shortest attention spans in human history. But when theater is done right, it could change. It's an easy joke here, but it could change the shape of things. Yeah. So.
Speaking of theater, do you have any top-going theater experiences? I gave you a little homework assignment before you came to this podcast, and that was it.
The most moved I've ever been was I was very, very, very fortunate to be my wife and I to attend the final performance of most of the original cast of Hamilton. So like Lynn and Leslie and Philippa's last show, I don't know if I'll ever have a feeling in a theater like that again, where just everyone was given just everything they had to give, you know, both on stage and in the house, you know, like there was just, you know, with so earned standing O's, you know, number after number after number. Like I can't remember a time I've ever experienced that in a theater before. Just like the raw emotion of, and I've experienced plenty of raw emotion in theater, but just, you know, what the fellow company members were given to their, you know, to their leaders, you know, on their goodbye night. The first time I saw Ben Platt and Dear Evan Hansen, shook me to my core. You know, I could still feel the same way about that now.
I actually worked merch for that as I'm sitting here in a Dear Evan Hansen hoodie. But Leonardo DiCaprio and Al Pacino were there that day too, so I got to see the show with them.
Did they come together or just?
They did, and they were like walking to like the aisle where I was like standing, and I was like, "Oh, it's fucking like Leonardo DiCaprio." And then they brought them to like a quote unquote VIP room in the theater. So somebody was like standing there with the wine, like you know the cups with the wine in it. And I swear I heard him say, like, "Oh, I had to get one of those." I was like, I heard Leonardo DiCaprio talk in person.
It's funny. Yeah. But for that was just as a recent fan memories. But the show that truly made me think I want to be an actor or I could be an actor was Doubt. It was a high school trip, a high school day trip from Brooklyn.
Did you see the original cast?
Yeah, from Brooklyn into the city to see Doubt.
See, I'm going to prove to you how I'm not that old compared to you.
And then I got to tell Cherry Jones that when we did Lifespan Effect together, the closing
that
night.
Show is so fun.
And I never, I'm working on something with somebody or I'm directly involved, peripherally involved, see them on the street. I never go up to other actors and just be like, oh my God, you know, never, ever, ever, ever. The last night of Lifespan, I kind of pulled Miss Jones, Cherry aside, and I can call her Cherry because she said I can call her Cherry. I pulled Cherry aside. I was like, just so you know, you're kind of why I'm an actor, and here's why, and told her about my trip to see Doubt, and it was just such a nice.
Do you think he did
conversation.
Okay.
It depends what age I am.
Okay, here's the deal. So this is proving to you how I'm not as old as you say. I did not get to see the original cast because I was still in high school. So I saw the the replacement. So it was Ron Eldard, whom I loved ever since seeing like a VHS version of him doing Death of a Salesman that they showed on PBS. And it was Elaine Atkins and oh my God, what's her face? I can't think of her name. Jenna Malone. Haha. And it was still Andrew Maddox who was in it, who won the Tony. So when I saw the show, I just did not know if he did it. And then the movie came out with Meryl Streep and Philip Seymour Hoffman and Amy Adams and Viola Davis. And the movie made me think that he actually did do it.
Yeah, but I feel like that was exactly what the movie wanted you to think, and the play left it more up to you.
But here's the interesting thing, though, is that it's the same playwright and John Patrick Stanley wrote and directed the movie.
But shot for shot, the movie could inform your opinion. You know, you don't have to change any dialogue or anything like that. Just the way it's framed. The movie leans toward he did it.
So it makes me just think that he did it in the play then.
Yeah. See, I remember at the time thinking no way. And then like when all the scandal stuff started happening a few years later thinking like, oh, absolutely. And now I still don't know.
You just like don't know. But I feel like in the movie you're definitely like...
Yeah, but Doubt had a direct and profound impact on my journey and desire to do this.
Yeah. It's such a great play, too. All right, you want to play a game?
Sure.
Or are you done with this podcast?
No, let's play a game.
Okay, so we're going to do like a really quick round because, you know, I feel like we've been talking a lot. So this...
Okay, but I have to win because otherwise it's not a point of playing games.
There's no losers in this game. So
except for you'll be the loser, I'll be the winner. Let's go. Okay.
I am always Beyonce. It's a line from The Office. You watch The Office?
Yeah, of course.
Where he's like, I'm always Beyonce. My friend actually got me stickers of The Office right here. So these are all in this Halloween bucket, all famous movie lines said by women.
Okay. And
you are going to read it however you want to read it.
Okay.
There's some well-known movies, some I don't know if you know the movies. So we'll maybe do like 2. Okay?
All right, let's see. And then we'll edit out the ones I don't know. Okay.
It's okay. If you don't know it, just say it. So what's the line?
Fuck me gently with a chainsaw? Do I look like Mother Teresa?
That's from Heathers.
That's great. All right, let's do one more.
Well, no, you had to say it however you want to. You can't just say the line. In this moment, you're an actor, Dom.
Oh.
So how would Dom, the actor, take a few seconds to figure out your character? Think, what would I say as this person?
Fuck me gently with a chainsaw. Do I look like Mother Teresa?
Ah, beautiful.
Okay, well done, Dom. Well done. Cheers.
Cheers. Do you want to do one more?
Let's do one more.
Okay. See, we
We'll
have fun.
We'll just do loud acting, and that sounds
Yes.
like good acting.
And what's your line?
Oh, come on. No, we can't do this one.
Why
It's
not?
because there's no place like home, and there's only one way to say it, like Judy does.
There's no place like home. Okay. You mean like Renee Zellweger?
Oh, hello, gorgeous. This I like.
Thank you. Oh, you mean the line.
Well, you are Bae, after all. When I look at you, I think Bae, so you have to say hello, gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. Your wife, I'm sure, would approve. I'm just joking. All right, so we didn't get to talk about the Oscars, but that's fine. You had to head out anyway.
Yes, and just, we want the Irishman to win. Okay?
I don't think it will.
It won't because the business hates Netflix, but that will change soon.
I don't necessarily agree with that because Laura Dern will most likely win the Oscar because I don't really think she has any competition.
Sure, she also deserves to win.
Also, her hair.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I think
Marriage Story is terrific.
Yeah.
I do think 1917 should win Best Cinematography.
I think a couple of it's going to be this or this. I think the only set at this point is pretty much the acting categories.
Joe Pesci needs to win Best Supporting Actor. It's the best work of his career.
Here's my thing about that. I think the only upsets in the acting category, and I'm trying to do this really quickly because I know you have to go, is either going to be supporting actor where Brad Pitt doesn't end up winning and it's going to end up being Pacino or Pesci, or if somehow Adam Driver magically wins the Oscar. I think Renee Zellweger has no competition. Same thing with Laura Dern. Original screenplay, it looks like Parasite might actually win. Mm-hmm. It's been, and I said this earlier on the podcast, the awards season win sometimes changes. So just because something wins doesn't mean that the other one will.
Yeah, and it's also not exciting if you just,
Yeah, I think Best Picture is going to be 1917, or it could be Parasite. Original.
It should win. It should absolutely win Best Foreign Film, but
yeah,
I don't think it should win. I don't think it needs to win Best Picture.
I don't know. It's either 1917, Parasite, or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Again, I'm trying to talk really fast because I know you had to leave. Yeah.
If Irishman doesn't win, I want it to be, just as a fan, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. I think that original screenplay might be Parasite or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Adapted screenplay for a really long time I thought it was going to be Pretty Woman, but Jojo Rabbit, as of late, has been winning some awards for adapted screenplays, so that might actually end up being the winner.
Hilarious.
Which I still have to see it, but
I loved it.
I have.
It was so weird. I loved it.
I'm also Jewish, so I don't know how I feel about it. But yeah, so I think I just want John Travolta to make an appearance and introduce Idina Menzel.
Oh.
and I totally called that on my Facebook the other day. But I will say that I saw the list of presenters and it doesn't look like he's there unless he's a surprise appearance. But with that being said, that's just a really quick. This is what I think the Oscars is going to be. So I would like to thank Dom for coming on
to the
podcast.
For having me.
Is there anything else you want to end with?
No, it's just good to see you, pal.
You too. Go watch The Irishman on Netflix. 3 hours and 29 minutes of your life.
Yes.
I haven't committed
329
to it yet.
glorious minutes, and then Lazy Susan in theaters April 3rd.
I'm not gonna lie. I will actually. So is Sean Hayes playing an actual woman in the
movie? And he's not a man playing a woman. He's just playing a woman. And it's Allison Janney, Margot Martindale, Matthew Broderick,
so
Jim
it's pretty
Rash.
much me.
It's hilarious. It's a true indie, made on an indie budget. That's getting some attention, getting some love. Sean's a gem. Yeah. And I'm in it, and I work with my greatest fear in life in it.
Which is Sean Hayes.
I have all of my best friend in the movie is a giant, parakeet, a 20-pound
You're afraid of birds?
bird, and I am terrified of birds. Perfect. Genuinely lifelong fear, primarily seagulls and pigeons. And I booked this thing and couldn't tell anyone that I was terrified of working with a bird. And then I spent 14 hours a day working with a bird, and it was freaking horrible.
Well, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, Allison Janney had a bird on her shoulder for most of I, Tonya.
Yes, but she had a little cute thing, and I had a condor. It was not.
Well,
not
listen,
okay.
You faced your fears, and here we are.
Yes.
So with that being said, I know you hate social media, but do you want anybody to follow you on
Yeah,
social
but it
media?
can be used for good, like,
Yes.
getting this podcast out there. So yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
Dom. My handle is that, that's what we say.
Yeah,
Right?
what's your handle?
My handle is Dom LaRuffa Jr.
Mine is at Theater Enthusiast. Theater. What is it? I always forget.
I think it's
at
a
Theater Enthusiast podcast.
Yes.
And theater spelled with an ER. I know. Guys, get over it. Okay, so that's it. Dom, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Best of luck on Oscar night.
Thank you.
Have a good one, guys.